Okay, hello, good day. Today we are going to have another lesson, and today we're going to study the literary device point of view. And again, specifically, we're going to look at point of view in poetry. All right, let's go ahead and discuss what point of view is. Point of view is the mode of narration that author employs to make readers or listeners hear or see the poetry. It is the angle by which a literary work is being considered. Um, this is the vantage point. This is the eyes, right? Point of view helps the reader understand the persona's feelings and actions. Since each persona will have his or her own perspective, whoever's telling the story will impact the reader's understanding, interpretation, and analysis of the poetry. Now, just like what we've been doing here, let us identify the three types of point of view. All right. There are three types of point of view. The first one is first person point of view. The first person point of view uses the pronouns I or we. Okay, I, we. So the speaker, the persona is included. The second person point of view, POV, uses the pronouns you, right? You. Okay. And the third person point of view uses the pronoun he, she, it, or a name, right? Someone else. Okay? So, first person point of view, I or we. Second person point of view, you. Third person point of view, he, she, it, or a totally separate, totally different name. All right. Now, how do we put that and how do we understand that in poetry? Now, let's have an example of a poetry that is written in first person point of view. It's one that once again uses the pronouns I or we. And I'm going to use my poetry, A Jeepney Ride. A Jeepney Ride by yours truly, Herbal Santiago. Yesterday, when the sun was scorching hot and the winds breathed a fire, I noticed the ferment reds of the suntan flowers blossoming at the dusty roadside of the street. This is just an extract of the poetry. I'm gonna link the poetry, so please do check out the full poetry. Um, but in this poetry, the persona is a jeepney driver. A jeep is a public utility transportation here in my country, in the Philippines. And a jeepney driver is the one who's driving it. So, in this poetry, the persona is a jeepney driver who is um, exploring and telling us about the insights that he got from the passengers that frequented his car. So, what is the value? What is the significance of of the first person point of view? Um, Again, in the class, we're able to identify that because we are able to see the experiences direct from the people, it changes the way we look at them. In my poetry, for example, you will realize that jeepney drivers are not just simple people. Some of them are capable of thinking and reflecting about their experiences. And to a certain extent, they're actually observing the passengers and making conclusions about the lives of the passengers. So, as a reader, now we become less judgmental and more accepting of the realities, different it may be, of other people. We're getting the narrative from direct from the people who are experiencing them. Remember we talked about persona. Persona is not exactly, not necessarily the author, right? So, in assuming the shoes of a jeepney driver, um, the poet, in this case, me, um, I bring to light the issues and the the capacities of jeepney drivers, right? And sometimes this is actually extremely necessary in our world today because we tend to be judgmental, right? We tend to not listen to people. Um, and it is good to have a first person point of view because it allows other people to understand the experiences direct from the people who are experiencing them, right? Um, and hopefully, right, if we become more accepting of the differing realities of different people and realize that even though there are different realities, people are still, um, it's still okay to accept that difference. Hopefully, the world will be a better place, right? Okay, so that's first person point of view. Now, let's talk about second person point of view. Second person point of view uses the pronouns you. This one is a very short, extremely short novel by Carl Duffy. The title is Dark. Let's read it. If you think of the dark as a black park and the moon as a bounced ball, if you think of the dark as a black park and the moon as a bounce ball. In the discussion, what's really amazing is that my students were able to see that it seems like the dark, remember main idea? It seems like the dark has been described as something that is not necessarily scary, right? Um, if you think of the dark as a black park and the moon as a bounce ball, you probably wouldn't be scared, right? It's just it's just a normal park that you would visit on a normal day. The moon, the dark moon, is nothing but a ball, right? That could be one main idea, right? So a dark becomes less scary. All right. What's really cool about this is that Carol Duffy uses the second person point of view. And because Carol Duffy uses the second person point of view, because the poet uses the second person point of view, there is a direct conversation with the readers. The poet is directly changing the perspective of the reader. In this case, the poet is directly changing our understanding, our perspective regarding the dark, right? Um, and the poet is actually extremely aware of the power of his or her power to influence um, readers, viewers, and listeners, right? So that's second person point of view. Now we have another point of view. The third one is third person point of view. It uses the pronouns he, she, it, or another name. And once again, I am using an extract from my poetry, Glimpse by Herbal Santiago. Let me read it. There he stood at a shallow rock, bathing hugely at the impending dark. All right, if you want to know what this thing is, what this glimpse is, I'm going to link the complete poetry up above. And so please visit that. Um, and what's really amazing in using the third person point of view is the poet or the persona is actually taking an observer point of view. Obviously, um, this one is actually a love poem. This poetry is a love poem, and we see a person um, looking at another person, observing another person that person adores, right? So there he stood at a shallow rock, bathing hugely at the impending dark. So because I have used a third person POV, what have I accomplished? What is the significance of the third person POV? Because the poet uses the third person POV, what we're getting is a perception of how the persona sees the other person. So this is a perception, this is a projection of the persona's feelings towards the other person. In reality, the other person may appear totally different from what the persona is describing. All right? So you have to be aware that when a poet is using a third person point of view, the persona has a bias, right? The persona is explaining the experience from his or her lens, from his or her lens, right? So it is possible that the person is totally different from what the persona is describing. So you have to be very careful in interpreting the nuances. All right, you have to be careful in interpreting the nuances. All right. Um, today, all right, we have talked about point of view, and here are the references that I have used. All right, and there you go. I've also pointed out, linked the Herbal Santiago Manunulat website. All right. Okay, now we've talked about point of view, and once again, there are three types of point of view. We have the first person point of view that uses the pronouns I or we. Second person point of view uses the pronoun you. Third person point of view uses the he, she, it, or a name. All right, in each point of view, actually influence readers' interpretation and analysis of the events inside the poetry. All right, I hope that has helped you. All right, my name is Herbal Santiago. I'm a writer, I'm a teacher. I post my work on herbalsantiagomanunulat.wordpress.com, and I also create video lessons to help my students and other students from all over the world. So click the subscribe button if this has helped you, and there's a bell button there. Click that also so you will be notified of the latest video lessons that I'm gonna create. That's it for today. Have a good day ahead of you. Bye.